continuing with our reading of Dallas Pimiento. This is Book 4, Bronco Fury. Sterile aggregate speaks for patriarch. A gifted chancellor, when properly medicated, Owen Rister offhandedly announced at a cabinet meeting his intention never to sneeze again. Acknowledging the applause of his colleagues, Rister continued, "How's that report on health, food, and vegetarian options in Germany coming along?" Rister directed his question to Audi Nutmegs, the minister of such matters. "Are you asking me?" Nutmegs asked. "Yes, Mr. Nutmegs, I'm most interested in what your team has to say on the subject." Rister bounced his pen up and down on its clicker. "Excuse me, Chancellor," begged Nutmegs, "but why did you tell us that stuff about intending never to sneeze again?" Rister turned his pen over and tapped the table with the operational end. "Well, I just thought that as my colleagues, you should know about what's going on in my life and the way my mind is working lately." "I see." Nutmegs tilted his head back. "You want us to be watching for the first signs of insanity so that we may take appropriate action." "No, that's not it," Rister shook his head. "Well, don't you think it's a bit dodgy?" Nutmegs made a wavering motion with his hand, to be so concerned about trying to stop oneself sneezing. "No, I don't," Rister affirmed. "Not at all. Look here, Nutmegs, do you like sneezing?" Before Nutmegs could reply, Rister carried on. "Do you like having this completely unnecessary explosion of the mouth and nose come over you for no good reason? Don't you find it a completely worthless experience?" "I haven't really given any thought," admitted Nutmegs. Rister stared hard at Nutmegs. "Haven't given it any thought. I could have told you that without asking. I bet you're still not done with that report, are you?" "I've got the damn thing right here." Nutmegs pulled a thick folder out of his case. "That's so like you." Rister paid Nutmegs no heed. "You're not really paying attention, are you?" "I'm paying attention to something right now," Nutmegs assured him forcefully. "I bet you didn't even notice that I'm holding back a fart right now," Rister sneered. "Flower Lord has come to feed." The tall one emerged from the aircraft's cargo hold, tucking his cowboy-style shirt into his comfortable chinos without bothering himself about undoing his belt or fly first. He simply used his broad hands like spatulas, doing nearly as good a job as Sprint Tubnuts, who watched him emerging and tucking, could have done using the other method. "You the tall one?" asked Tubnuts of the tall one. "That's what they call me," the tall one replied. His voice was deep and creaky. He was dressed all in pale blue, like a prisoner of the state. On his head was a battered old hat that had many of the same features as a cowboy hat, but could in no way be mistaken for a cowboy hat. "That a cowboy hat?" Tubnuts asked the tall one, as he accompanied him to the front of the aircraft. "Hold that thought," said the tall one. He leaned into the cockpit and spoke with the pilot. "I appreciate the lift," he said. "Any time, Mike," Tubnuts heard the pilot reply. "Your name Mike?" asked Tubnuts as he followed the tall one across the tarmac. "No." The tall one squinted at the makeshift terminal in the distance. Innumerable wrinkles, cut deep by the sun and the wind, surrounded his eyes. "My name's Sprint Tubnuts," Tubnuts informed the tall one matter-of-factly. The tall one glanced at Tubnuts. An observant man might have noted the slightest break in his stride. "That a fact," he said. "I knew somebody named of Tubnuts. Long time ago," he added in a tone like that of a wheel in an abandoned mill shifted slightly by the breeze. "Really?" Tubnuts' eye was caught by the glint of metal at the tall one's wrist. "Who?" The tall one did not answer. He put his hand to the door of the terminal lounge and entered. He looked about for a moment as Tubnuts, momentarily forgotten, squeezed in behind him. He followed the tall one's gaze but saw nothing of interest, just the usual crowd of indifference. "What you looking?" Tubnuts began to speak, but was cut off by the tall one's hand suddenly at his throat. "Where's Dr. Fungroid?" the tall one demanded in a low growl. Feeble bedspread. A trail of small, surrealist wooden idols, each wearing a short skirt of cheap printed cotton, led Orbis, LeGreg, and Lyndon Franker from the site of the proposed Pepsi dumping reclamation station over a thickly wooded hilltop to the wreckage of the Kebab Strike Force's fake spacecraft. LeGreg gestured at the front quarter panel with his walking stick. "You can tell it's an inferior grade of metal," he said. "It wouldn't last 30 seconds in the rigors of space travel. Strange the Kebabs should have gone to so much trouble to manufacture a replica when the real thing is so readily available to them," Franker mused. "Well, we can't hang about here all day." LeGreg stood up from a cursory examination of the bumper stickers on the rear of the craft. "The girls will be arriving from the college in about an hour." He consulted his watch, the one item bearing the mark of his military service that he had kept. "Wait, LeGreg," Franker pointed to the side of the wreckage. "These scorch marks are painted on." "I told you you could call me Orbis," LeGreg reminded his friend. Observing the two middle-aged adventurers from the tiny platform high in the nearby tree was one of the Kebabs, an ancient race of bipeds from the smaller of the two moons. Intrigued by the sound of the imminent arrival of college girls, the Kebab, named Screwrider in the Kebab tongue, selected an insect from the cache at his disposal. These specially trained flying termites were capable of carrying messages for their masters. Screwrider fitted the hastily scrawled note into the insect's backpack and sent him off to alert Wheateater and Trink, his two friends on the strike force. 20 minutes later, the latter two Kebabs were reading Screwrider's words. "College girls." Wheateater rubbed the inside of his lips with a finger. "Yeah. Human college girls," Trink said with distaste. "You don't know them like Screwrider and I," Wheateater smiled wickedly. He knew he had a wicked smile. He practiced it in the mirror each morning. "What are you going to do, wear a human mask?" Trink asked sarcastically. "Oh, we won't need to," Wheateater promised. When Trink shook his head at Wheateater, the latter assured him that he was coming along. The Fireman's Bouquet. Much better, thought Karen, to begin the book on a friendly note, given the amount of misery to come later on. She had tentatively titled her book The Fireman's Bouquet, but trying to be professional, she was willing to allow her editor to change it to something more commercial should he see fit. What will the book be about?" Duber asked her as they sat together in the oversized rain barrel. "My marriage to Bill," she answered. Duber stiffened suddenly. His eye was at the traditional knothole that the rain barrel factory had supplied. "They're coming," he said. "Relax," Karen whispered. "This is going to be great. Remember, you can't be a writer unless you have first-hand experience of what you're writing about." Duber nodded. He knew Karen was right. After all, she had been writing far longer than he. According to her plan, they would wait until the Kebabs were directly in front of the rain barrel and then stand up, frightening them and gleaning valuable experience that he could then put into his own book, tentatively titled "Give Me Back My Bollocks." "Now," Karen hissed. She and Duber stood up before the Kebab troopers. "Boo!" Karen shouted. When she smiled, there was something similar to Doris Day about her face. Photos taken later at her autopsy failed to determine what that something was. "Where are the college-age human girls?" one Kebab, Dill Whirler by name, demanded of the mocking stars overhead. "Perhaps we read Screwrider's message wrong," suggested Murphy, another Kebab in Dill Whirler's patrol. "Perhaps it was in code," added Unsagerable, yet another of the unsavory aliens who didn't look all that different from humans except for the presence of short vestigial horns on the tops of their heads. "Perhaps it was all a trick," Dill Whirler cried, hefting the rain barrel into the air. Lying mangled on the ground nearby, Duber deliriously began rethinking his book idea. "Maybe I'll call it The Fireman's Bouquet," he thought. "It will be about the disparity between my dreams and the actual life I've led." Angry Facade. Their fake discography, laid out on a grid and thoroughly annotated, was complete. Now Orbis, LeGreg, and Lyndon Franker could sit back with bananas in hand and watch the various moons overhead, occasionally glancing over at 4 hours' worth of work. It was worth it, LeGreg sighed. He drew a long, inedible string off his banana and flung it into the trash receptacle. "Yes, it was," Franker agreed. He looked up at one of the moons and wondered if he would ever get to see its surface. Tunneling beneath the pool house in which the two old men lounged, Mr. Cosmonaut and his government-appointed apprentice Hank worried over the high chlorine reading they were getting on one of the scopes that lined the dashboard of their tunneling craft. "And what does that tell us?" Mr. Cosmonaut asked Hank in a fair approximation of the Socratic method. "That the lad's pool is just above us?" Hank answered hesitantly. Yes, of course, but more than that." Mr. Cosmonaut rolled his hand about his wrist. "That it has more chlorine in it than it should?" Hank guessed. "Yes, but why?" Mr. Cosmonaut's legendary temper was showing through the mask of sage-like impassivity he was trying hard to maintain. Who was the government to foist this novice upon him? "I don't know, Mr. Cosmonaut." Hank hung his head sadly. The green navigational light lit up his scalp, revealing a regrettable tattoo under the greasy black hair. Mr. Cosmonaut fought the urge to bash the young man with a clipboard or some other nearby object. "It means," he grimly smiled with a fatherly crinkling of the eyes, "that regular maintenance of the pool is not the first priority of the two hooligans whom we have come to codify." "They're up to something," Hank concluded triumphantly, redeeming himself temporarily. "Exactly," Mr. Cosmonaut leered, turning the tunneling craft upwards. "But what?" "By the way, LeGreg," Franker asked, "when did our band break up?" "When all the moons were new at the same time," LeGreg suggested dreamily. Ghosts perpetuate the salad bar. A particularly annoying janitor stood before the globe, slowly turning it about with one hand as he stared over the top of his thick glasses at all the fascinating shapes. "Just ignore him," Harling advised the 6 comrades who had joined him at the table. "It will be difficult," Vance shuddered as he noted the crust clinging to the hem of the janitor's t-shirt. "But for your mother's sake, I will try." "You honor me with your effort." Harling stood and bowed. Vance responded by strewing the table with a pocketful of his business cards. "Vietnam," the janitor said aloud. Harling glanced at him. He turned back to his comrades with a smile. "Now," he said, reaching into his coat. He withdrew a wad of paper that, unfolded, covered most of the table and obscured all but 2 of Vance's cleverly designed cards. "This is a diagram of the Sultan's head. As you can see from the retrograde alignments both in the interior and subspatial conduits," he gestured with a Butterfinger brand candy bar that he planned to eat for lunch later, "the extended household to which the Sultan's head is attached is in for a rough autumn." "New Guinea?" the janitor shouted, perplexed. He turned to the men at the table a few feet away. "What was wrong with the old one?" he asked. His ginger-colored mustache was thick with crumbs. "Indeed," Morrison nervously replied, smiling. "Please, just ignore him," Harling reminded Morrison. "Harling," interposed Ralphs, "forgive me for butting in here, but I think I speak for everyone here at the table when I ask, are you going to share any of that Butterfinger with us?" He laughed jovially, casting glances to left and right that brought everyone into the laughing spirit, at least momentarily. Norbert stopped laughing first. "I thought you were going to ask why Harling wants us to ignore the janitor," he said. In the sudden silence that followed, Vance spoke solemnly. "Norbert, this is for Harling's mother." "Trapped in a harem," the janitor said aloud, apparently without realizing that he had done so. As all eyes turned to him, the janitor put both hands on the globe, bent his head close, and began to lick the Ottoman Empire. Denied counseling. The expression "heavier than a sardine-filled pumpkin" has its origins in an anecdote concerning the young Beethoven. For years, historians ignored the expression and denied the veracity of the anecdote. For a couple of years after that, a few historians sought to find the origin of the anecdote itself, while the remainder of their colleagues had moved on to researching the cinematic precursors to Star Wars. Now, it is my privilege to reveal the source of the anecdote while leaving the interpretation of the expression to others whose college degrees entitle them alone to such duties. What the anecdote actually is remains unknown. It is to Gibson's combined treasury of despots and quiet riot chronology that we must turn. As the only known copy is in the so-called thieves' library in the coastal village of Ramekin, we will mount our magic carpet, taking care to bundle up for the summer it is at last ending, and direct our thoughts southward to the obscene peninsula on whose shoreline Ramekin sits like a bubble against the wall of a toilet bowl. I've had quite enough of your nonsense, you shout. Let me off. Go ahead and shout, I instruct you. No one can hear you up here. As you struggle at the embrace of the heavy coat, I point out our destination below. No time to listen to your contemptuous pleading. We are plummeting to earth with only my hands on the carpet's tassels to steer us. There it is, I tell you, the Thieves' Library. It is a weather-beaten old mobile home on the overgrown lot behind Big Mac's package store. I explained to you that the magic carpet, being magic, easily fits into the inner pocket of my sports jacket, but you don't seem to be listening. I would wonder about the origins of your odd custom of clutching the religious medallion about your neck, but as I explained earlier, I have no college degree allowing such speculation. My only job is to haul you about the country while government agents ransack your apartment. Dragging you inside the trailer, I greet Burke, the fat man watching TV inside. What do you think of that, I ask. Isn't she a doll? But where are the books, you ask, looking even more frightened than when the airplane almost hit us. Ain't but one book here, sweetheart, says Burke, and that's the phone book. He is a character, that Burke. Inadequate medicine. Plaid field caps set at a jaunty angle atop heavily starched hair remained the hostess's distinguishing characteristic, even as their shirts were changed from white to pale blue and their navy blue skirts to khaki trousers. Vera checked her appearance in the front door of the industrial microwave oven and hurried to Mr. Clackenspoon's cabin with his drink. Thanks, sweetie. Clackenspoon's assistant took the glass and bottle of tonic from her. The side of his face twitched spasmodically. Vera tried to catch Clackenspoon's eye before the door was shut in her face, but the great man was deep in conversation with a severe-looking man in a black suit. He had been put aboard by a government cruiser yesterday. It was all mysterious. If I could just make eye contact with Mr. Clackenspoon, Vera sighed. She changed the toilet paper in the staff restroom while Myrna washed her hands. And then what? Myrna asked her co-worker. They say he's lonely since his wife died. Vera remembered the articles in the tabloids. Well, I'll say this for you, honey. When you dream big. Myrna left to attend to the clutch of foreigners in Section TT. Does anyone yet suspect the truth? The mystery man, Kent Broker of the Nightbag Division, asked the reclusive billionaire and former professional wrestler, Doug Forky Clackenspoon. How could they? Replied Clackenspoon. His face wasn't what one would expect of an intelligent bipedal bear. Electrolysis and extensive plastic surgery had made his appearance acceptably human. The truly surprising thing about Clackenspoon, however, was that he was actually a female bear once called Panchea, from the nomad camps at the foot of the Krogi Mountains. She coughed once after sipping from the glass of tonic. Are you all right? Asked Broker. This is warm, Clackenspoon complained. I'm sorry, sir, said the assistant, taking the glass. Shall I have the hostess punished? We don't have time for that, Clackenspoon croaked. Just get me some ice. After the assistant had left the cabin, Broker said, He's in love with you. Love is an illusion. Power is the ultimate reality, the wealthy but dying bear growled. Hobgoblins of their own tri-cornered beef. Fabulous stories about the gentrification of the Mordaunt brothers circulated around town. Miss Pinkrath listened to one such story and stood up near its conclusion, throwing up her hands and shaking her head. I don't want to hear any more such nonsense, she cried. I knew Weldon and Marie Mordaunt, and they would never have brought up their voice to turn so easily into gentry. But it's most likely true, Oliver the Owl attachment assessor started to say as the lady dashed away. He sat on the simply made but overly padded love seat with his mouth open, an unfinished cup of chicory balanced on his knee and another on the upturned packing crate before him. He turned to Sylvanus, the servant, standing against the wall several feet away. The man was in the shadows, but his white wig could clearly be seen. Have you ever seen such insanity? Oliver asked. It is not my place to say, sir, Sylvanus replied. Oliver considered a moment. No, of course not. It was foolish of me to bother asking you anything other than where are those muffins? I asked for them over 10 minutes ago. I'll go see about them, sir. Please do. Sylvanus left the room, walked down the corridor to the back door of the large structure, and crossed the stone-strewn dirt alley to the kitchens. He could see Miss Pinkrath in the distance, flapping away to her house like a big flightless bird. "It's cold out today," Sylvanus announced as he entered the kitchens. Rose and the Clarkson girl were pounding dough at the marble-topped counter. "It's always cold in the 18th century," Rose answered in her deep, work-worn voice. "Haven't you noticed?" "I guess I have noticed nothing. I guess I have nothing to compare it to. No point of reference." Sylvanus cocked an eyebrow like Mr. Spock as he coolly deliberated upon the observation. "I'll be a lot happier when we move further along in time to some more warmly remembered period like the 1900s. Muffins, Rose, muffins. Do you have any muffins?" Sylvanus asked. All right, we're going to stop there.